Hey everyone, it's Crystal here, and I'm here to expand on our chat about burnout and to just further explain it more, explore a bit more about it, and bring some awareness to what you can experience when you do have burnout. So, we're going to start looking at the stages of burnout. And there are three main stages of burnout, and they range from milder to moderate to severe symptoms. And these three stages can accumulate. And as they accumulate, it moves on to the next stage. So, when you're not recognizing that burnout is occurring and it's just kind of constantly happening in the background, we can miss out on these clues and indicators that you are experiencing burnout. So let's just dive right in and let's start at the beginning. So, what are the milder symptoms? Stage one. This is what we call stage one of burnout. You'll start feeling potentially mental fatigue at the end of the day. You've gone through your whole day, done everything that you need to do, and you're just extremely, extremely mentally exhausted by the time 5 o'clock rolls around or whenever you finish your day, and you're just completely mentally exhausted. Thoughts aren't very clear. You feel like you can't move forward. You're just trying really hard to unwind, but that's not happening for you mentally. So, another milder symptom that you can experience is feeling unappreciated, frustrated, or tense. So, these three actually, you can feel all of them. But when you start feeling like where you are and what you're doing is underappreciated, that you don't get any recognition, you can start feeling this tense sensation in your body. And this tenseness starts in your muscles. It could start anywhere in your muscles. Usually, we hold a lot of tense feelings in our shoulders and neck, so usually that's the first place that goes. But this is an indicator of burnout when you start feeling these tense muscle sensations, and then frustrated, completely frustrated with what you're doing, with your tasks, with everything that's happening. You just have this frustrated feeling constantly. So, what else? Looking at some physical aches and pains. And of course, it's normal to have, sometimes an ache and pain here and there, but when it starts become noticeably constant and not at the point of getting chronic yet, but it's constantly there. And you can start feeling like pains like lower back pain, maybe pain under your feet, that neck, shoulder complex area. So when you're starting to feel these aches and pains, these could be an indicator of just some milder symptoms of burnout, the onset of burnout. And then what else? So, feeling like you're falling behind on tasks at work, things just aren't lining up like they should. You're kind of distracted all the time and things just aren't getting done. And you also aren't motivated to get them done either. So, when you see things kind of falling behind, things not getting done, this could be some indicator, early onset indicator of burnout. And then the most obvious is dreading the next day. So if you're waking up and you're just don't want to do it, just have no intention, no desire, no motivation, no drive to do it. Even at the end of the day, when you're done the day and you're dreading about the next day, that feeling of dread and just complete exhaustion is really going to set you up for these milder symptoms to occur. And when we wake up with this dreading feeling, it's a really hard way to put our mind at ease to start our day. So we're already waking up with this negative mentality. You can only imagine what the rest of your day will feel like, and it'll be really draining in that way because you've woken up, you've started the day with that thought process. So those are some of the more milder ones, stage one symptoms and stages that you can experience. Let's look at when these start amplifying into a stage two. And these are longer lasting symptoms. These are symptoms that last a lot more longer than the milder ones. So, starting at feeling like things are more challenging, that you're not able to reverse the symptoms. And when you're not able to reverse the symptoms because they're continuous, they're constant, you're, not being really aware of what's happening and what's causing this. Reversing the symptoms could be really challenging because you're kind of stuck in that mode of burnout. So, when you're stuck in that mode, you may not know what options are available to you. So, reversing them seem almost impossible. Delusions about the job or what you're doing. So, when you start having these longer lasting delusions, think you're doing something, but you're not really doing something, or you wish it was some other way, or you're, daydreaming and thinking like, things things aren't right now and they should be right. And having even delusions where it brings up some emotions. And the emotions with delusions, of course, they're unrealistic because, these aren't real tangible events occurring. So you may be wishing something was a certain way, or wanting or desiring, or, trying to think of things that aren't really going to happen. Um, and they can create some negative emotions within you where you start feeling let down. You're disappointing yourself, and these kinds of things can lead to a more negative influence in the way you feel about things. Feeling bored and apathetic or frustrated. Now, this is one of the major key indicators of burnout. When you're starting to feel this way, where things don't excite you anymore, where they're starting to feel more like a task and a job versus willingness to do it, desires to do it, motivations to do it, wanting to do it. So when you're starting to feel these feelings of boredom and frustration, and you know they don't invigorate you, they don't light a fire under you to want to keep doing it. And when you start feeling this way, there's a reason to why you're feeling this way. It doesn't just happen out of the blue. Something triggers this to occur, and where you lose the desire and sensation to want to do it. So, feeling ruled by a schedule. Ah, this is such a big one. So, when you're in a burnout stage, you've gotten there in some way, shape, or form. When you have a schedule that you have to persistently follow, persistently to the T, you have to do this at that time, this at this time, and things are just becoming repetitive. That does help with the boredom, but sticking to a schedule is great. And I'm not saying that scheduling isn't a good thing, but when you're constantly repeating and feeling like you have to live by this schedule, it doesn't really do you very well for creativeness or to deal with spontaneous events and things like that. So you're almost setting yourself up to be too rigid in a certain way. Intermittent periods of psychological and physical symptoms. So, this is your emotional symptoms, your physical symptoms that you feel from the emotions. If you're feeling like really upset and you don't deal with that feeling and it prolongs, it can result in some physical symptoms. If you're feeling depressed or saddened by anything and you don't deal with that on the onset and you allow that to prolong, again, it will lead into some physical symptoms. If you're feeling just completely exhausted and tired, and you don't address that and you don't take better care, it's going to lead to some further health issues. So they kind of work with one in the same. Your emotions as well as your physical work together, because whatever we're thinking creates these chemical sensations through our body, and our body is going to act in a way where it's representing what our mind is suggesting. So knowing that if you are feeling in these ways and they aren't dealt with, it can lead to some prolonged health issues, some prolonged emotional issues, and put you in that rut of feeling terrible overall. Now, psychological symptoms. So, this is irritability, aggression, anxiety, substance abuse, maybe, wanting to throw in the towel, all these kind of thoughts that you may have. When you start going and down the road of anxiety and you're feeling anxious towards things that never made you anxious before, when you start feeling those, depressive thoughts that don't serve you very well and that never used to be there, when you are always kind of in a slump and not feeling really well, when you start having, thoughts of anger or needing to use, something to numb the pain and your thoughts, reaching for some sort of substance or whatever may it be, when you're kind of at this state needing to take a less helpful approach towards your psychological well-being, this is going to be the gateway to long-term burnout. And you may think that, these aren't a big deal. This isn't going to be a big deal. Everyone experiences these things, but it's how you then rebound from it as well. So, not wanting to stay in those psychological places where they don't do you very well and actually cause more harm than good. All right, then. So, moving on to stage 3 symptoms. So, what are we looking at here? These are more severe things that can occur from burnout. These are more things that you can experience at the extreme level. So, starting off at looking at some chronic issues where chronic pain comes up, chronic illnesses, and these are all stemmed from what we're thinking and what is happening in our body. So just earlier talking about the aches and pains that kind of were, at the early onset stages, more milder symptoms. Now they've become a chronic symptom where they're more severe. So this is the highest stage of burnout, where now we're at a more severe stage. The chronic pains are severely chronic, where you're having a hard time moving around fluidly, doing your normal tasks, acting, and being able to be physically active within whatever you're doing. It's creating some mobility challenges. So those physical pains should be recognized, because we do have some pain, but we shouldn't have that pain if the energy is free flowing. So when it's stuck in these areas where you're feeling pain, things aren't free flowing very well within your body. And then looking at the chronic illnesses. So, this could be anything that you're experiencing, maybe some blood flow, irritable bowel syndromes, stuff like that, where, certain things never used to be there. And then all of a sudden they started flaring up. And then now they're becoming long term issues. So, thinking about how our burnout situation started, where these things started showing up, and then how they've now taken over and are ruling our life. The chronic illness, is something quite challenging to overcome, because it does require a lot of intervention and a lot of dedication on your end to intervene and do something about it. So, looking at those different chronic issues, and then even the emotions, when you're experiencing these chronic emotions of depression, anxiety, fatigue, loneliness, etc., it can really amplify the chronic illness and chronic pain that you're feeling. So just realizing that when you're stuck in those, migraines happen, these body aches are happening, your loss of appetite, maybe not getting enough sleep, insomnia, maybe your weight is fluctuating. It affects everybody so differently, yet so drastically when we're at this chronic level. So, what else is in a stage three? Well, your life expectancy. And that's obvious after what we just talked about, why your life expectancy would go down because you're in this heightened stress mode. And a little bit of stress is good. It makes us do things, it makes us alert, we're aware, we're able to go into that mode of fix it. But when we're constantly on that on mode and we're constantly at a very high level of stress, you can only imagine what kind of signals that's sending our body and what that's doing to us physically. So, the life expectancy can definitely take a turn because we're, showing up things in chronic illness and chronic pains and our emotions. And they all set a framework for how our body operates and how our mind is working for us. You may experience some troubles in your relationships. And this is a huge one because people who are experiencing burnout don't realize how it affects their relationships, how it's affecting people around them, how it's affecting their own relationship with themselves. So, relationships are so important. We're natural social beings of the universe. Humans love to be, in a relationship with somebody. And when we're constantly in this mode of burnout, we can really push people away. People may not understand us, they may not see why we're behaving in this manner. It can, instill more arguments or confrontation, maybe not give you any clarity to see, other people's perspectives. It really just puts your mood in a really uncomfortable state where you're always in this attitude of perhaps being upset or angry or frustrated or flustered. And that doesn't really help, of course, especially when you're in a relationship, with anyone and even at work as well. That is something very important to have, that interconnected relationship with people around you for support and stability and friendship and love and care. You know, we need that. And so when you're in this burnout mode, you're almost pushing everybody away. Not obviously because you want to, but this is what's naturally happening because of what's happening with you. And then a high job turnover. So this is definitely, you changing job after job, hoping, things will change, but when you're in that burnout mode, nothing really, it's not really the place. It's not really what's happening there. It's what's happening within you and your attitude towards it. And yeah, not everywhere is perfect. The environment could be very challenging to deal with. Uh, but when you look at the environments and, they're all different, yet you still feel the same, that can really be indicator that you're at a very heightened level of burnout and it's not going to be helping no matter where you go. So thinking about that and realizing that, it is a more of an internal job, to get rid of the burnout, to bring that level of awareness to that, and it's not actually, the place of work, that could help as well, but also be aware that, that can amplify the burnout feeling. So we all know that not every job place is ideal. Uh, Everywhere has its flaws. It's just how we interpret it and how we take it and how we deal with it and how we move through it. So, those are the three major stages of burnout: the more minor stage, moderate, and severe stages. I hope that was more than informative for you so you can identify if you do relate to any of these three, if perhaps you know somebody that is feeling this way in a caregiving or a care working position. And also be aware that when you start off in a stage one, you can get over it. You start in a stage two, you can also get over it. Stage three, you can get over it. And sometimes we just need a little bit more awareness and a little bit more help in order to get there. But it is possible, and burnout is, you know, you are able to overcome burnout. So I hope you're able to get some value out of that today. I'll see you soon.